My name is Michael. I'm joined here today by my co-host Omar here. We will be taking you through the Bulletin Live Designer webinar, and we're going to be going through a couple of different topics, specifically in regards to going through and getting newsletters and bulletins set up and created for your club and sharing them with all of your different membership. Before we do jump right into it, there are a couple of things that I did want to note for everyone. First off, this webinar is being recorded, and we will be posting the recordings of these webinars on our clubrunnersupport.com websites, as well as the Clubrunner community websites. So if you guys do have to jump ship at any point during the webinar, you will be posting those recordings so you can go back and review anything that you may have missed. As another note, once I finish going through the once I finish going through the webinar today, Omar here will be going through and taking you through a quick Q&A session. He'll be going through and answering a bunch of the different questions that we often receive during these webinars. And if you guys do have any questions at any point during the webinar, Zoom does offer a really nice Q&A section where you can go ahead and you can post your questions there. And Omar will be going through during the live webinar and answering them as best as he can. He will also be going through and taking a look at the chat just in case, but please do post your questions in that Q&A section as well. So with all of that said, let's go ahead and jump into some of the things that we will be talking about today. So as you see here, we're going to go through a number of different things. Mainly through this is going to guide you through the entire process of creating your bulletin and getting it sent out filled with content and sending it out to your membership. So first, we're going to talk about how you can go in and access the Bulletin Live Designer. This will require only a couple of steps, and it's really quick to get into. So that shouldn't take too long. Next, we're going to go through and we're going to create our first bulletin. And this will cover a couple of different things like setting your website theme, your layout, and including any content that you might want to include in that bulletin as well. Once we've finished our bulletin, we're going to go through the process of sending out the bulletin to the members of your club so that you can share it across with all of your various different members. Finally, we're going to take a look at some additional options like the bulletin statistics page, so you can get a good idea of whether the bulletin was sent out successfully, who had received the bulletin successfully, and if there had been any issues in sending it out in general. And then finally, we'll also really quickly cover how you can create bulletin templates so that you can go through and you can quickly get started on your next bulletin once you've sorted everything out with your first one and you want to have a good jumping off point for the future. So with all of that said, let's go ahead and jump right back into our club's member area. Oh, I'm on. There we go. So we are currently already logged into our club's member area. We are logged in as John Valentine here, who is a site administrator for our club. But just as a note, you do not need site administrator access in order to go in and create a bulletin. In this case, the access level that you will need is level 60 editor or greater. So that will include the editors of your club that have the level 60 access level 50 club executives, the level 40 club president, and level 30 site administrators. If you have any of those access levels, you will be able to go in and access the Bulletin Live Designer so that you can push out content for your club. So let's go ahead and take a look at this administrative dashboard as we were in a club editor. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on this tab here. And if you do have that level 60 editor access, this is how you will see this page. If we scroll down, we have access to the My Clubrunner section, Need Help, What's New. But the main one that we're going to be taking a look at is the is the communication section down here under member management. I can't talk today. Sorry about that, guys. The communication section under member engagement. This is where you'll have access to the primary communication modules within Clubrunner. So this includes the generic email communication center, where you can send out regular emails to your membership. But you also have access to the Bulletin Designer as well. So if you come down to this communication section, you'll see the Send Bulletin option here, and this will allow us to go through and start creating our bulletins. If you don't necessarily have to access the Bulletin Designer this way as well. Instead, if we scroll to the top of the page, in the top blue navigation menu, right up at the top, you'll see the option New Bulletin Beta. If we click on that tab here, we will have two new options in the secondary menu that's right below it. You'll have Manage Bulletins, which will bring us right into the Bulletin Designer. And then we also have the Help section, where if you have any questions, this will bring you to the clubrunnersupport.com knowledge base, where we have a bunch of different articles and videos and help sections that can help you get started using the Bulletin Designer and just about any of the other different sections in Club Runner. Omar will be going over this just a little bit as we are wrapping up the webinar, so I'm not going to cover it too much right now. So we're just going to go ahead and jump into the Manage Bulletins section. When we click on Manage Bulletins, it will bring us to this Bulletin homepage, and you'll see a couple of different sections that are here. If this is your first time accessing the Bulletin Designer, you will see this nice message just saying hi to yourself and letting you know that this is the new Bulletin Designer, and a really quick button to get in and access the Bulletin Designer and create a new bulletin. If we scroll down a little bit further, we have a couple of other different areas. One, we have the Recent Bulletins section, which will display a list of the recent bulletins that you've worked on. So you can see here, we already have a number that are available for us to access, but this will be different for whatever bulletins your club uses. Whatever the most recent ones you've used is what will be displayed here. Along the right-hand side, we also have access to this Create Bulletin button, which we'll click on in just one moment to start working on our bulletins. You can also click on View Bulletins to get a full list of all of the bulletins that your club has created within Club Runner. And then right below that, we have these quick links options. From here, you can go ahead and you can access the bulletin settings page, the Manage Bulletin Groups, the Manage My Templates, and the Send History and Stats. We're not going to touch these for right now. We will be going ahead and we're going to go right into creating our bulletin, but we will discuss these a little bit later on. And finally, we have the Learn section here down at the bottom with some really quick links to some video tutorials that you can take a look at to quickly get started and use in Bulletin Design. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and we're going to create our first bulletin. So in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and click on this big blue Create Bulletin button here. And this will allow us to now select a bulletin template. By default, Club Runner will have a bunch of different templates that are already available for you. In this case, we are logged in as a Rotary club. So a lot of the templates that we see here are Rotary themed, but if you are not a part of a Rotary club yourself, and you'll see some other templates here as well. You'll notice that there are also two other tabs here. Up at the top, you have the regular templates tab, which is the default one that we're looking at right now. We also have the blank templates tab, which includes a couple of a little bit more basic templates that have some pre-formatted layouts in there for you already. And then we also have My Templates. Now, these are some templates that have been created by the clubs ourselves. And I will be touching on how you can create templates on your own right after we finish creating our own bulletin. But just know that you are able to create your own custom templates so that if you're able to get a bulletin created that you are happy with, and you want to be able to use that as a starting point for any of your future bulletins that you'll be creating, you can turn them into templates so that you can use them later on. So for now, let's go ahead and go back to the templates tab here. And we're going to scroll down and we're going to select one of these templates that are already available for us to use. One of my personal favorites is this Bulletin 2 columns one, which is just so happens to be the first one in the list. So if we go ahead and we click it, it'll show that we have now selected this template. And we can now go over and we can actually start editing the template and creating our own custom bulletin. So let's go ahead and after we've selected the template we want to use, we can go ahead and click on the next button in the top right corner. And this will bring us to the next step of the bulletin process, which is to design our template and input any content that we want to include within it. So as the system is going through and processing the template and getting it ready for us to use, once it's finished, it'll go ahead and bring us to this page here. And this is what we call the Bulletin Live Designer. If any of you have attended some of our other webinars or you've made use of the website Live Designer, this may look very, very similar to you. And that's because at the end of the day, this is the same system that we're using here. On the left-hand side, you will see a live preview of the bulletin that you're working on, including all of the different content that's included within it. So you can so as you're working on it, you'll be able to see pretty much exactly what it's going to look like once it's been published and it's been sent out to your members. On the right-hand side, this is where we have access to all of the different settings and content and layouts and things like that we can use to change and customize our bulletin. So up at the top of this right side here, you'll see that there are a couple of different buttons that we can click on. These buttons will change what is available for us to use in this right-hand menu. So by default, the content tab is what will be selected. And this is where we'll have access to all of the different widgets that we can use and place on our bulletin to add any of the custom content that we want to include. So we have a number of different preformant widgets up here at the top. These are very basic widgets that will give you a format that you can use to input your content really quickly. So if you just want to input a little bit of text, you can use this text only widget. If you want to say have a large image with a little caption right below it, you can use the image with caption widget as well. Or if you want to have like a 3-column setup with some images and some text, you can use triple image above text here. So I do recommend you go through and you take a look at all these when you have a chance. We also have the essentials category down here as well, which are some of the more commonly used widgets that you can go for or that you can use. The meeting information widget, which will allow you to really quickly place and share your meeting information with whoever receives your content. We also have the Bulletin Stories widget, which will allow you to place stories that your club has created within the bulletin, as well as a number of other ones like the bulletin download files, the birthdays and anniversaries widget, which will show upcoming birthdays and anniversaries of your club membership. And as we scroll down, you can see we have a couple of other different sections. The links widget allows us to create a widget with a bunch of custom links that you can share on your website or on your bulletin. The events section has a lot to do with the upcoming events for your club. So you have access to the bulletin speakers to show any upcoming speakers, the upcoming events widget to show any upcoming events. And then we also have a meeting responsibilities widget. So if your club has assigns any responsibilities at each of your club's meetings, you can use this widget to share that information with your club through the bulletin. Next, we have Bulletin and PR, which is where we have a bunch of bulletin specific widgets, like the Bulletin Editor. So you can share the name of the person that is the editor of the bulletin along with everyone else. You can include the Bulletin Scribe widget, so that individuals that this bulletin might be shared with later on, or if they're viewing it on their website, they can click on this link to subscribe to your bulletin and be added to your newsletter listing so that they can receive additional ones later on. We have the Bulletin Rotary link widget, which is just a bunch of generic Rotary links to say like the myrotary.org website for those of you that are a part of Rotary. We also have an RSS feed for those of you that are familiar with those. You can choose to use this to include an RSS feed on your bulletin, as well as a sponsors widget too. Finally, if you guys did attend the website Live Designer webinar, you will be familiar with this as well. We have the custom widgets widget categories here, which you can use to create your own custom widgets in just about whatever format that you want to use. So these give you pretty much full reign on the content that is included within them and how they appear on the website. For those of you that are familiar with things like HTML or CSS, these are really powerful widgets that you can use to input that HTML and CSS into your bulletin to get it to look exactly the way that you want. So that's pretty much an overview of all of the different widgets that we have access to in the Bulletin Live Designer. We're going to come back here once we start adding some of this content to our bulletin, but let's go over the other tabs we have up here at the top as well. So you may have noticed we also have the themes section as well. So this is where we can select the general look and feel of the bulletin itself. So right now we have the minimalist compact theme with no banner using the midnight blue compact color scheme. But if you're not really happy with this theme, we can go ahead and we can change that really easily. All we have to do is once we are in this themes section or tab of the Bulletin Live Designer, we can find one of the bulletins that we think we might like. So let's take this airmail one here, for example. This is one of our older themes, but we can go ahead and click on one of these squares that indicates the color scheme of that bulletin. So let's go ahead and select this bulletin red airmail here. And that will go ahead and it'll update our bulletin to use that new theme. So you can now see that it looks a little bit different than it did before. We have this nice little banner section up at the top with a nice little red line delimiting that from the regular bulletin. We also have a little bit of a different background, and everything, all of the different colors of the text have changed as well. Let's take a look at another one of the themes that we have. Let's take a look here at let's go ahead and look at the Leadership Compact No Banner theme here. So this is pretty much the same as the leadership one up here, but everything's a little bit closer together, just as a note. So let's go ahead and select a new theme here. Let's select Azure and Gold Compact for the Leadership Compact theme. And you can see that it's now changed to a solid blue background. We no longer have that header up at the top, and the colors of all of our text and the fonts and stylings of all this stuff have changed as well. So you can go through and take a look at all of these different themes that we have access to. There are quite a few, and each one has their own list of color schemes that you can select from. So there is quite a lot of customizability to your bulletin that you can do using this themes tab alone. Once you've gone through and you've selected the theme that you're happy with and you want to move forward with, we can then go over to the Layouts tab. And this is what we'll be selecting here is the general layout of your bulletin, which will determine where you can place content within it. So right now, the bulletin that the layout that we're using for our bulletin is the header plus full width plus right sidebar plus bottom layout. So we have the top header at the top. We have the full width banner section right below it. And then as we scroll down, we have the main section where we'll be able to include the bulk of our content. And then we have our right sidebar here on the right-hand side. And if we scroll down, we also have a section here Here we go. Which will allow us to include some additional information towards the bottom of the bulletin too. Let's go ahead and select one of our other themes. So let's select one of these response themes that we have here as well. It'll look it'll end up looking pretty similar. Actually, so you know what, let's go ahead and select this one. The header full width plus single plus bottom layout. And what this will do is, instead of having that left and right sidebar, we only have access to a single column that runs down the middle. So this is a layout that you like a little bit more for your bulletin. This is definitely something that you can do, but I do recommend that you go through each one of these and see which ones you think look best for your club. Personally, I really like these responsive headers with their left or right sidebars, as this I feel gives you the most customizability of your bulletin. If you don't necessarily like that right-hand sidebar, you can go through using that full width and the single column right down the middle. But I personally like this a little bit better. Next, we have access to the properties section. And this is where we can go through and we can adjust a couple of different settings for our bulletin. So first off, we change the name of the bulletin. So let's say, let's go ahead and change this to Changeover Training Bulletin number 1. So you can change this to just about whatever you like it to be named. A lot of clubs will be able to come up with their own bulletin names, but you can put up pretty much whatever you want here. Next, we can select the bulletin date. So this will either be the date that the club is looking to send it out on, or the date that the bulletin was created. You can use this pretty much however you would like. Let's say, in this case, this bulletin is to be going out on Saturday, May 21st. So we could go ahead and select that date here. Now note, this doesn't mean that when we publish the bulletin, it will be sent out on this date. This is simply a setting that you can choose to help categorize your bulletin. If you want to send out the bulletin on a specific date, but after you've created it ahead of time, that's something that we will be discussing in just a little bit. Next, we have a couple of other different sections. We have the bulletin code here, which you can use just as a, how should I say, an organization feature. So you can enter some information here however you'd like. So let's go ahead and say, so with the changeover training code here. Next, we have the bulletin group. Now, this isn't something that we'll be touching on too much during the webinar itself today, but you can go through and you can create different bulletin groups that you can go in and you can assign different bulletins to these groups. And that will allow you to kind of have several different types of bulletins that you can share, that you can create and share across your club. So say you have a general bulletin for your regular membership. You can have you'll have that bulletin group there. If you have a bulletin group, you can also create a bulletin group, say for example here, we have a member only news one here as well. So this will be used for bulletins that will be sharing information that will only be available to your membership. And then we also have access to information like editor name and editor email. So as I mentioned before, there was a bulletin, or sorry, not bulletin, there was a widget that allows you to share the information of the bulletin editor. This is where that widget will pull that information from. So if we go ahead and enter in the, let's see here, we'll start typing in the name of our bulletin editor here. So we're going to select John Valentine. And this is now set John as our bulletin editor. And you can see that the email has been automatically filled in from using the email address that's in John's profile. And then next we have access to the bulletin, the email subject line. So once this bulletin has been sent out to your clubs and to your members, this is what will be displayed as the subject line for the email that has been sent out under. So let's go ahead and say, I see a lot of clubs just simply use the name of their bulletin here as well. But you can go ahead and you can change this to pretty much whatever you would like. So you can say like Club Runner Bulletins, and then you can put the name of your bulletin itself. But you can do whatever you want here, whatever you think is best for your club's bulletins. Next, we have the website publishing section here, which is where we'll be able to change a couple of different things that will appear for the bulletin. One is we can set whether the bulletin will appear within the bulletin widget of your homepage. And then we can also choose whether it should include any commitments within the bulletin as well. So if you guys have set any, so within Club Runner, whenever you sign up for like an event or something, that's what's called a commitment. And it's not just for events, but whenever, you can also be for like a volunteer sign up list, for example. Whenever you sign up for one of these, you are committing to that event or to that, to that event, I should just say. And what this will do is it will display a list of the individual recipients' commitments within the bulletin itself to remind them of exactly what things they have coming up. So if you want to be able to share that information with the club or with your individual members, I usually recommend leaving the show commitments option checked. And then finally, we have the access level here, which is where we can go through and we can select who should be able to go in and view this bulletin. So if we leave it selected as public here, any individual that visits your website and has access to the link to view the bulletin will be able to go through and they can look at the bulletin regardless of whether they're logged into your website or not. Otherwise, if you want to restrict the bulletin to be only accessible by members of your club, you can go ahead and select the requires login option here. So whenever they go and they go to your website, they click on this bulletin to take a look at it, they will first be prompted to log into their Club Runner profile before they'll be able to view that bulletin. And so with that said, that's just all of the different properties that we can go over. So let's take a look at the final setting here, which is the text option. Now, this is a little bit of a lesser known feature. I don't see too many clubs use this very often. But what this does is that when the bulletin has been sent out, should the recipient of your bulletin not be able to load it for whatever reason, say their email client, for example, doesn't support the ability to display these bulletins or like the HTML bulletins that we are using here, and it'll only display like regular text. Instead of displaying the bulletin here, it will display this text here instead. And what you can do, well, by default, this will include some information just to let them know, hey, for whatever reason, the bulletin isn't working within your mail client, go to this link to view it on our actual website. So this is a really good backup way to make sure that even if someone's mail client doesn't support the ability to view the bulletin that you sent out, they'll still be able to have access to the bulletin using a different method. So you can come in here and you can customize this message just about however you would like to. But once you've done that, you can go ahead and click on the save button here, and this will be good to go. Now, so we've gone ahead, we've set the theme of our bulletin. We've gone ahead and we've set the layout, we've set the properties, and we've set the backup text that will be displayed instead of the bulletin if there's any issues. Now, let's go through and we can actually start including some content within our bulletin. We're going to go ahead and we're going to go back to the content section here. And this is where we can start changing all the various different information that is displayed within the bulletin. Now, since we did select one of the bulletin templates, you'll see that there are already a number of different widgets that are available here for us to use. So you can go through and you can edit this however you would like. So for example, here we have this full width banner with the image up at the top. If we want to change the image that's here, we can go ahead and click on the pencil icon. And that will open up, let me drag this over here. It'll open up the image library for your club. And you'll be able to go through and you can select any of the images that might have been uploaded to your image library. And if you have any that are stored on your personal computer, you can go ahead and click on this upload button. Let me see if I can zoom in just a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. You'll be able to click on this upload button in the top left corner, and you'll be able to select the files that are currently located on your computer's hard drive, and you can upload it to the image library for future use within Club Runner and within the bulletin that you're working on right now. Now, once you've gone through and you've uploaded your images that you want to use, you can go through and you can select any of the images that are in this image library. So let's go ahead and select one here really quickly. See if we can find one that's a little bit suitable. So let's just go ahead and select this very first one here that we have, the join a project 1200.jpg. We're going to select this one by double clicking on it. And that will then update the heading or the header that we had there within the widget that that was already placed for us. Then we can go down and we can adjust the how should I say, the additional text that's right below it. So we can change here. For example, this is used for your bulletin title, as you see here. But so you can go ahead and change this to the title of our bulletin. Bulletin. Oops, hit the wrong key on my keyboard. Bulletin number 1. But as I mentioned before, this doesn't have to be the title of your bulletin. You may not even have this widget already placed on your website, on your bulletin. It might be a completely different widget. So you can go ahead and you can customize this pretty much however you would like it to be. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete some of the widgets that we already have here so that we can go ahead and we can put in our own custom ones as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the essentials widgets here. So, as I mentioned before, these essentials widgets are some of the more commonly used ones by a lot of different clubs, and the ones that we think will be probably the most helpful for the majority of clubs. Well, the first one that I'd like to drag in is the meeting information widget. So just like in the website Live Designer, for those of you that may have attended that or are familiar with using the Live Designer in general, you can go ahead and click and drag on one of these individual widgets, and then we can drag and drop it over to one of these different sections that say drop here. So we can either choose to place this in the main section or within the right sidebar, which again, these are where we can place it is determined by the layout that we've selected. So we can drag it over to the section that we want to place. And then all we got to do is let go of our mouse cursor, and it will take that widget and it will place it on our website. Say, for example, you've placed your widget, but you put it in the wrong spot, or you want to see what it might look like in one of the other sections. You can go ahead and you can move the widgets that you've already placed. So you can go ahead and hover your mouse cursor over the widget that you want to move. And in the top left corner of that widget, you'll see these 6 dots that if we click and drag on, it will allow us to shift where we have that widget placed. So let's drag and drop this over to the main section instead. And I think that looks a little bit better on the right-hand side. It's not so cramped. So let's go ahead and leave it there for now. And now let's also drag in some more information. So we'll also take in the Bulletin Stories widget here, and we're going to click and drag this just to right underneath our meeting information widget into the main section. Now we've placed that widget, but you don't really see any content here. Instead, you just see the text stories and then a bunch of different lines going through it. When you see that, that usually indicates that there isn't any content to be displayed quite yet. So what we need to do in this case is we need to edit that widget to go in and select which stories we want to display within our bulletin. So we're going to go ahead and click, hover our mouse cursor over that stories widget that we just placed. And in the center, you will see this box with an arrow coming out of it. This is the edit widget icon. If we click on that, it will change the page over to the one that you are seeing right here. And from here, we can select which stories we want to include. We can either choose to create a new story for a bulletin, or if we already have one that's existing, we can go through and select ones that are already available in our story library. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll click Add Stories from the story library. And you can see here we have a list of all of the different stories that have been created for our club. And all we need to do is click the checkbox for whichever one that we want to display. Let's see. So let's select a couple here. So we'll select 4. Once you're done selecting all of the stories that you want to appear, if we scroll down to the bottom of the page, you will see this Done button right at the bottom right. You can also click Cancel, but to forget any of the selection that you've just made and go back, or you can go ahead and click on the Done button to save those changes. And you can now see that those stories have been added into the stories for our bulletin. Now, after adding those stories in there, you might not necessarily like the order that's been selected for them. So if you want to rearrange the order of these stories at all, to change how or where they'll appear on the bulletin, you can go ahead and click and drag on the 3 dots to the left of the names of your stories. You'll know you're there when your mouse cursor changes to these 4 little arrows, and you can click and drag to change the positions of those stories. So for example, I want this young inventor eco-friendly bricks. This young inventor eco-friendly bricks come full circle story to appear right down at the bottom, as well as this, let's say we want the fish fry barbecue history to appear at the top because that is the most recent. But we'll go ahead and leave the other 2 as they are for now. Once you're happy with the order of your stories, we can then go ahead and click Done. And this will bring us back to our bulletin. And we can see now that the Stories widget here has now been populated with a bunch of the content here. Actually, let me go through and let me change some of these stories really quickly, just to make sure that everything is okay. Let me just remove this story here. So just as a note, if you do want to remove any stories, you can go ahead and you can come back to this page, check boxes of the stories that you want to remove. And then you can go ahead and click on the Remove Selected button down here at the bottom. So we can go ahead and click OK to confirm. And then it will bring us back to our bulletin where we can see those pages that we've just made. So we have our meeting information widget up at the top, and then we have our stories widget right below it, including all of the content for those stories that we've just added. So now we might have noticed that this widget seems to have gotten a little bit long. So let's go ahead and we can adjust a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and click on this cog icon here in the top right corner of the widget. And we can go down here and we can customize the properties of this widget. So in this case, we have a number of different properties that we can adjust. So we can choose whether we want to show the content item title. So this will be if you want to display the title of the individual stories that are listed there for you. We do want to display that, so we'll leave that checked. We can also choose some like background colors and custom colors for the text and the titles and the links. and all the different text that is displaying within that widget. So we can choose that all here, but we're going to skip over that for now. And we're going to take a look at some of these other options that we have. If your story includes a thumbnail image, you can choose whether you want to display that or not by clicking or by selecting or deselecting this checkbox. You can also choose whether you want to show or hide the brief or content sections of your story. So in this case, the content section of one of our stories is really long. And that's why the stories section is being pushed is looking a little bit longer than we would like. So we can go ahead and we can hide one of these sections. The way that I usually describe the difference between these two sections, that the brief is the introductory content to the story, which is what the users will be clicking or will take a look at and will be hooking them into reading the rest of the story or reading the story content. So by hiding the show content section, within the bulletin itself, it'll only display the introductory content of the story or the story brief. And if we go down to the very bottom here, you'll also see we have a setting to show a read more. By having this combination, by enabling the read more link and hiding the content but showing the brief, individuals will be able to read the introductory text to your story, and then they'll be able to click on the read more button to bring them to the full page on your website to read the entirety of the contents of your story. This is usually how I recommend setting this up for your bulletin, just to prevent all of that content from cluttering the bulletin itself. So let's go ahead and click on the save option down at the bottom right to save those changes. And as you can see here, the stories widget has now been shortened quite a bit, and I think that looks a little bit better in this case. Now, we've populated the main section of our bulletin. The right-hand side here is looking a little bit barren. So let's add some additional stuff here. Let's go ahead and drag in the executives and directors bulletin widget here, so we can see our list of executives. Let's also go down under events, and we will grab the upcoming events widget as well. And we'll go ahead and place that right below our executive directors. So as you can see here, we're continuing to fill out our bulletin. Now, let's see here. Let's also go ahead and we can drag one more widget in here to complete the bulletin that we wanted to include, or to include all the content that we want to. Let's go ahead and drag in this Bulletin Rotary links widget to the bottom of the right-hand side. And you'll see in this case that it does display text here with the lines indicating that there's no context display. But in this case, this Rotary links section will be automatically populated by Cleverner to include the content. So you don't have to worry about this one. It's more that note that I mentioned earlier is more so for widgets like these stories, where you can manually select the content that is being displayed. Now, I do want to create a custom widget in here as well, just to show that off to you guys. So let's go ahead and scroll to the bottom of our widgets list here, where we have access to the custom widgets global and the custom widgets bulletin specific categories. Now, both of these do function pretty much exactly the same. They're custom widgets that you can go through and you can change and edit the content however you would like to. But the main difference is the bulletin specific and the global tag for both of them. The global widgets here will be able to be used across any of the bulletins that you do create. So if we create a global widget, you'll be able to use it in the bulletin that you're currently working on, as well as any future bulletins that you will be working on. So if you are creating a widget here that you think could be useful for upcoming bulletins as well, and you want to be able to really quickly add that content to the bulletin moving forward, we highly recommend creating a global widget. But if this is just going to be like a one-time widget that you're only doing for this specific bulletin, we recommend using bulletin specific. So this is just a really good way to kind of help you keep everything organized in this case. So let's go ahead and drag in a bulletin specific widget here. And it works exactly the same. We can drag and drop it wherever we would like. Let's actually go ahead and drop this into our bottom section here. And you can see if we can now click on it to start editing the content that we can do, or that we can put in here. So let's say cover, changeover, a bulletin specific widget. And then we can choose to, so we can align this text to the center, to the left, to the right. We can change the heading, like the heading styling of this text. We can change the font, the size of the font. We can change the color. We can do pretty much whatever we want using these toolbar options that we have here. But one thing that I really like to show off is that this toolbar option here isn't everything that you can do. So there is more that you can do than just create, like bold your text, highlight it, create a link, add an image. You can do more than that. So if you click out of your bulletin so that you can you have access to this little highlighting overview here. If instead of clicking on this pencil icon, we go up to the top right and click on this edit widget button instead, this will bring us to a new page within Club Runner, where we have access to the full widget content editor, where we now have access to things like the ability to insert tables into our widget. We can choose to, you have like a find and replace option. So if you want to take a look and you want to replace some content that you've already added in, you can definitely do that as well. And then you also have the option to add images here. You can add what's called Iframe for those of you that are familiar with that. This is a really powerful tool. For those of you that aren't familiar with this, I recommend taking a look and investigating this just a little bit. You can choose to add like horizontal lines, smiley emoticons or emojis, special characters, line breaks, like quotes. You can even, for those of you that are familiar with HTML and CSS and just coding in general, you also have access to this source option, where if you click this, it will take us to view the full HTML of the widget that we're working on. So with this, you'll be able to go through and you can customize this however you would like. It's entirely up to you. As long as you know what you're doing. If you know what you're doing with HTML, you are familiar with working with it, you can use this to have 100% customizability for your widgets in your bulletin. If you're not familiar with HTML or CSS, I don't really recommend that you touch it because there is a chance that you might break a couple of things in your bulletin. So this is really only for advanced users that are familiar with HTML. Just as an additional note, while you do have the option to edit that source code for your widgets, this is not something that is supported by our support team. So if you are going in and you are trying to add in custom code to your widgets, but you can't really get to work quite right, that's not something that our support team will be able to assist, unfortunately. But just know that this is an option that is available for you. So let's actually go ahead and we can go ahead and customize this a little bit more. So we have our Club Runner Changeover training bulletin specific widget text here. Let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. We'll bold it, we'll underline it, and we can change the font size here. So let's make it a little bit bigger. Now let's also go ahead and select a background text, for example. We can also go through and select the color of the text that we want to display as. So you could change this to whatever you'd like. Now, if you wanted to include a link, for example, we can go ahead and definitely do that as well. So let's go ahead and change this back to black. There we go. And now we can go ahead and type in some additional text. Click here to access more club runner training websites. Now we can turn this text into a link by highlighting that text here. And then we can go ahead and click on this link toolbar option. And from there, we can go ahead and we can input a link to wherever we would like. So this can be an external URL to any website that you can think of. You can also choose to create a link to like the built-in pages for your club. So these are pages that have been created by club runners so that you can use. You can also have links for custom pages that you may have created, any documents you've uploaded, download files. You can choose to link an email so you can really quickly send an email to someone, a registration page for an event. You have all of these different options that we can select from. In this case, we're going to go ahead and we're going to link to an external website that we're going to share here. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to share the Club Runner Changeover Training registration page. Let's go ahead and head over there really quickly. So this is where you can go through and you can sign up for all of our different webinars that we're hosting during the Changeover training. We only have a handful left, as this is the last week of the Changeover training, but there are still a couple that are available for you to register for now. So let's go ahead and copy this link that we have in our net browser navigation menu, and we're going to go back to our Bulletin Designer to edit our widget. We're going to go ahead and we're going to paste that widget into this URL field here. This will then go through and it'll update our link here. And once we click OK, that text that we've just created has now been turned into a link. We can't click on it quite yet since we are in the editor, but once this bulletin has been sent out, individuals will be able to click on this piece of text to go through and visit that page that you just entered. And if you want to add an image to these custom widgets, you can definitely do that as well. All we got to do is click on this image toolbar option. This will open up the properties for us. And when we click on browse server here, this browse server button, this will open up the image library that we saw just a little while ago, and where we can select and upload images to Club Runner. So let's just go ahead and select one of the ones that we already have available. Something that looks a little bit. So let's go ahead and select the Club Runner logo here. So we'll click on that. And now if we click OK, you can see that it's been added to our bulletin here. But this is too big. This is way too big. So we're going to edit this image now so that we can change the size of it. Let's right click on the image that we've just added. Click image properties, and then on the left-hand side, we have access to a couple of different settings for our image. The one that we're going to be changing here today is the width and the height settings, which will allow you to adjust the specific size of the image that you've selected and how large or small it will appear on your bulletin. So let's go ahead and change the width and height of this to about 100. Let's go to 100 by 100 pixels. You can also choose to add like a border around the image itself, and you can choose to add some padding to it as well as align it to the left or to the right of your text. In this case, we're going to go ahead and leave it as not set, and then we'll go ahead and click OK. And you can now see that the image has now been made smaller, and the borders and the settings that we applied to it have now been applied. So let's go ahead and save and publish our widget. And if we scroll back down to the bottom, you can see that our widget is now being displayed with all of those changes that we've just made. Now, we've gone ahead, we've finished up our bulletin, and we've included all the content that we want to include within it. Now we actually have to go through the process of sending out the bulletin to our membership. Now, when we go through and we're going to send it out, we kind of want to double check it really quickly to make sure that we see it exactly how they're going to see it, so that we can make sure that there aren't really any issues. So if we go to the top of the page and click on the next button, it will bring us over to the next step of the bulletin creation process, and that is to preview it. We highly recommend going through, examining the bulletin that you've created within this preview step to make sure that everything is exactly how you want it to appear. So we have our meeting information widget here. We have our stories are appearing correctly. We have our executives and directors and widgets in the right-hand sidebar appearing correctly. Everything looks good to go, including our commitments here, which will be automatically populated on an individual member basis once the email or once the bulletin has been officially sent out. So we are happy with this, but if there was any issues that you wanted to go back and fix, you can always go ahead and click on step 2, design, to go back to the Bulletin Live Designer to continue editing it as we were earlier. If you want to go through and take a look at the email in a test, or the bulletin in a test email, you can go ahead and click the send test to myself button here, right in the top right corner. And this will send they'll also send a copy of the bulletin over to you via email so that you can take a look at it within your email client as well. So if there's any specific email client issues that you are seeing, you can also come back here, you come back and change it before sending it out to the entirety of your membership. So we've gone ahead, we've previewed our bulletin. We're happy with how it looks. We can now go through and we can send it out to our membership. So let's go ahead and click next or the send option, send step here. And this is where we'll select who the bulletin is going to. So left-hand side, we're going to select our recipients. So we have access to a number of different options that are here. We can select our active and honorary members, any other user records that we have for our club as well, our inactive members or our terminated members, we can select them here. We can also choose to specify the club executives and directors for the current year, as well as custom distribution lists and contact groups. Now, if you want to further break these sections down into more specific categories, so instead of active and honorary members here, for example, what if we only wanted to send this bulletin to the active members and not the honorary members? If we click on this plus icon, we have access to those individual categories here. So we can now go through and we can unselect honorary members, and we'll leave the 2 active member groups here as marked. So now, in this category, only the active and active corporate member types will be receiving this email. And you can do this for all of the different categories that we have here as well. So you can always choose to break these down to get a better understanding of who will be receiving your bulletins. So let's go ahead and minimize those again. Now, you can get even more in-depth for these lists. So instead of breaking it down into these categories, we can then go ahead and we can break it down into the individual members that are listed within those recipients. So if we click on this expand link instead, this will allow us to take a look at all of the individual people that are included within that list, and we can customize it even further. So if there are specific members within a group we don't want to receive the bulletin, you can deselect them here as well. Let's go ahead and select this. Let's just select a couple of them to remove here, for example, for the sake of the example. And when you're happy with that, you can then go ahead and click on the Done button in the bottom right corner of that window. And we've gone it. So now we've gone ahead and we've selected all of the people that we want to receive our bulletin. And now we can change some settings about the email that we'll be sending out in general. So we did touch on this earlier under the bulletin properties. You now have the option to adjust your email subject line one final time. So I recommend, even if you've set this under the bulletin properties, I highly recommend you double check this just to be safe. And then you can change it up however you would like to. As we move down, we also have the option to archive the bulletin after it's been sent. Now, I usually highly recommend that you do choose to archive your bulletins after it's been sent. What this will do is it will take the bulletin that we've just created and it will put it to the archived state. What this will do is it will prevent any additional changes from being made to your bulletin. So while we were creating that bulletin, we did apply a couple of different widgets to it, like the upcoming events widget that will automatically be updated by Runner as those dates come up and new events are start to replace them. By archiving our bulletin, this will lock down this specific bulletin so that those widgets can no longer be updated, and the entire bulletin as it was sent out will be archived for anyone to take a look at later on. If you do not archive your bulletin, there is a chance that some of those widgets, like the upcoming events widget, will be automatically updated as your events occur and new events are coming up. So if someone were to take a look at this bulletin a couple months down the line, instead of seeing the list of events that were occurring during this period of time that we've sent out this bulletin, they'll instead be seeing the events that are around time that they're viewing the document, viewing the bulletin. So for historical purposes, and to prevent any information from possibly getting changed later on, we highly recommend that you archive your bulletins after you've sent them. As we move on from that, we also have the option to include yourself within the bulletin. So you'll be able to copy yourself into the bulletin as well. And then you can also choose to set the reply to field. So if someone wants to reach back out to the club, after you've set the bulletin, they can click reply, and this will allow them to really quickly send an email to the individual that you're selecting here. So you can either choose to select yourself, the bulletin editor. So for example, you might be sending this bulletin off on behalf of the bulletin editor, but you don't want those emails coming to you. They go to the bulletin editor. You can select them specifically. And then you can also choose a custom contact. So you can enter in the name of whoever you'd like. So let's just take Omar here, for example. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put Omar's name in, and then we can go ahead and type in an email address for them. Now, whenever someone goes through and they send out this bulletin and someone responds back to it, their response will go to the email address that we've entered here. So it'll go to Omar's email address, and Omar will be able to go through, receive their responses, and respond back accordingly. And then finally, we have the option to whether we want the bulletin to be sent out immediately as soon as we click the send button, or if we want to schedule it for a later date. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and we're going to send it immediately. But just so that you guys do know how this works, if you select schedule for later, you will be able to select the individual date that you want the bulletin to be sent out on. So I believe we select this bulletin as the Saturday, May 21st bulletin. So we can choose to send this out on May 21st, 2022. And then we can also choose to set a specific time for our bulletin as well. To do this, we can use these arrows to the right of this field here. And if we click on the square, it'll input the current time for your local computer. So right now it's 4:05 p.m. So that's what's been entered here. And then we can then go and adjust this time using the up and down arrows to change the currently selected section of the bulletin. And then we can also either use the left or right buttons or arrows to switch to the next section and adjust that as well. So we've now set it so that it is sent out on May 21st, 2022 at 7 a.m. Now, once we click send, the bulletin won't be sent out until this date that we've selected. Now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to send it now, so that just for the sake of the webinar today. So we're going to send now, and then we can go ahead and click on the send button in either the top right or the bottom right corners. If we click send, we'll get a nice confirmation message, asking whether we are sure we want to send that bulletin to the people that we've selected. So we can go ahead and click OK to confirm. And the system will now go through, it'll process our bulletin, and it will start getting it ready to send out to our membership. So now that we've sent it out, we get this nice message saying that we are done. So let's go back and go to the bulletin homepage. And as you can see, we are right back where we started at the start of our webinar. We have our recent bulletins here. We have all of our quick links down on the right-hand side. Now let's take a look at the email statistics for our bulletin. This is what will allow you to get a pretty solid understanding of which members are successfully receiving your bulletins, which may be running into any issues, and if there are any blocked or dropped bulletins or emails that have been sent out as well. So under the quick links section here of the bulletin home, we can go ahead and click send history and stats. And this is where we'll be able to go through and we can take a look at this bulletin, or at these bulletins here. So right up at the top, we have our changeover training bulletin number 1 for May 21st, 2022, which is the one that we have just sent. So we're going to go ahead and go over to the actions drop-down menu here. We're going to click on the little down arrow, open up that drop-down menu, and then we can go ahead and click on the stats action. This will load up a page where we can then take a look at the stats for our bulletins. So you can see here right up at the top, no one has been able to take a look at the bulletin quite yet. And we can also see the successfully delivered stat here as well. So it looks like only 36% of people that this bulletin was sent to had this bulletin successfully delivered to their inboxes. And about 45% of recipients had run into some sort of error receiving those bulletins. And if we look right down below it, we will see these stats broken down a little bit further. So 0 people have opened the bulletin. It has been delivered to 4 people successfully. No bulletins are still in the queue to be sent, so everything's been sent out successfully. We've had 0 bounced emails, but we've had 5 dropped emails. So whenever you see these dropped emails, this is usually an indication that there is some sort of issue with the email address or the email service providers of the individuals that have had these bulletins dropped. So let's go ahead and scroll down just a little bit, and we'll get a full breakdown of each member or each individual that these have been sent out to. So you can see here, we have a couple that are in the unknown status. So the system's not quite too sure what's going on with these 2 quite yet. But if we give this some time, it'll go back and it'll update and it'll correct it to the right status. Next, we see the sent individuals. So these are the people that have successfully received our bulletin. So John Valentine here, John Corporal, Mickey Dewey, and Peter Parker Jr., they've all successfully received their bulletins, but they haven't opened it quite yet. Should one of these members go through and they actually open the bulletin, this status will actually be changed to opened to indicate that they have seen the bulletin. And then finally, we have a bunch of individuals that are listed here that have had their emails dropped. Now, as I mentioned, usually when there's a dropped email, this indicates that there's some sort of issue with their email address or their email's mail servers. In this case, I can already tell you what this issue is. Each of these individuals, they have an email address They have the name of their email address, but they are using an @example.com email address as in this case. Now, example.com, that's not a real email address. So in this case, these are all invalid email addresses. And because of that, the system was unable to deliver it to their inboxes because there is no inbox to deliver them to. So because of that, each of these emails have been dropped. Now, this is a really good way that you can go through and you can take a look at these email stats, so you know exactly what issues someone might be running into. Now, I did mention that this is because these individuals did have an invalid email address. We can actually go in and we can confirm this really quickly. In the stats that we have up at the top here, if we go to the dropped category here and we click on the number, this will bring us to a new page. Oh, actually looks like it hasn't updated quite yet. Unfortunately, let's see here. Let's try that one more time. Like it's not quite working right now. But typically, whenever you see these dropped emails, these lists will be viewable within that dropped list, and it will provide you with a specific reason as to why that email had been dropped. So in this case, if we were to click on the link and everything was to be populated there successfully, it will display a reason that is something along the lines of invalid email address, and you'll be able to confirm using that method. I actually want to show you one section really quickly, which is the blocked emails list for your club. We can access this by going into the top blue navigation menu and then going to the Manage Blocked Emails page. And if we open up this, we will see a full list of people that have their email addresses blocked. Now, whenever an email or a bulletin has been dropped for whatever reason, it will be added to this blocked emails list, and this will prevent additional emails or bulletins from being sent to them until they have been removed from this blocked email list. So if you see here, we actually see a number of the different people that we've sent our bulletin to have been added to this list. So we see Cyril here, we see Zach Woods, Baker, John Applegate, Eddie Chu. All these people, they have the @example.com email address. And since this isn't a real email address, they've been dropped, added to this blocked email list with a reason of invalid email address. So what we would have to do in this case is go to these members' profiles, update their email addresses to a valid one, and then we can come back here and we can unblock the email addresses for these individuals. And this will allow the system to start sending those emails over to them once again. So this is always a really handy place to double check in order to go through and make sure that everyone is properly receiving their emails. Now, with all of that said, we've gone through the entire process of setting up a new bulletin, selecting the theme, the layout, and setting the properties for it. We've also gone through and we've added a bunch of content to it. We've sent out our bulletin. We've also learning how we can schedule that bulletin to be sent out at a later date. And we also took a look at how we can go through and review the email statistics for our bulletins to make sure that everyone is receiving those bulletins correctly. Now, before we end the webinar, there is one or two more things that I do want to show off to you really quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to navigate back to our bulletin homepage. Just to recap, you can do that by going to New Bulletin Beta in the top blue navigation menu. And then we can click on Manage Bulletins in the secondary menu right below it. Now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at the archived bulletins that our club has already archived. So when you archive a bulletin, as I mentioned before, you can no longer edit it. However, it is still available for you to view, take a look at, and you can also create copies of them. So let's go ahead and click on the View Bulletin button here. And then this will give us a list of all of our active bulletins. So we have our general media, our bulletin group, website inquiry, and then my templates, which will display a list of your bulletin templates. We can go ahead and click on this drop-down menu here instead, and we can select archived bulletins. This will give a list of all of the bulletins that we have archived. And as you see here, here is the bulletin we've just worked on and we've just sent out and archived. So it's still available for us to take a look at. If we click the Actions drop-down menu here, we can view the bulletin, we can edit some of its properties, and we can also choose to send out another copy of the bulletin. So if someone didn't receive it or you want to just send out another copy to someone else, you can choose to resend that bulletin. You can also choose to hide this bulletin on your website to prevent it from appearing within the bulletin widgets, for example, or the bulletin list page. You can choose to hide that using this option here. And if you want to go through and create a copy of our bulletin, you can do that as well. Let's go ahead and create a copy here. So we're going to go ahead and click on the copy action. And this will allow us to go through and change some of the basic properties of our bulletin here. So we're going to go ahead and enter in some information. Bulletin. This time we're going to go ahead and we're going to use this bulletin copy as a template for our bulletins. So we'll leave this as some generic name for now, and then we're going to leave everything else pretty much exactly the same. Actually, we're going to go ahead and hide this from the website for now. And we don't have anything to do there. So let's go ahead and click on the next button once we're happy with all of this. And this will bring us right back to our Bulletin Live Designer. Instead of going through the process that we were just going through and sending this out one more time, we're now going to go back to our Bulletin homepage here. And we're going to go ahead and click on, we're going to find the bulletin under our recent bulletins section. Click on the drop-down menu, and we can now select Save as Template. We're going to go ahead and click on this, and it'll give us a nice confirmation message, asking whether we want to create a new template based on that bulletin we've selected. We can go ahead and click OK. And this will bring us right back. Let's right back into our active bulletins list page, but we've now selected, we are under the My Templates category. So you can see here the changeover training bulletin has been added. The preview for it is still being generated, so you don't see that right now. But if we were to open it, we can go in and we can customize this template that we've just created. So you can change this around however you would like. But this isn't something that we can actually go through and set. So let's actually go ahead and click on the back button to come back to our active bulletins page here. And we're now going to create a new bulletin really quickly, just so that I can show you how you can now use this template that we've just created. So let's go ahead and click on the Create Bulletin button one more time. And then on this page where we were able to choose a template previously, we can now go ahead and select the My Templates tab here. And you can see the changeover training bulletin that bulletin template that we just created is now available for us to select. And if we select it and click Next, we can now go through and we can create a new bulletin using that custom template we just created as our starting baseline. And we can go ahead and choose to continue to customize this however we'd like. And then once you're happy with any of the changes you make, you can continue through the bulletin creation process as normal. So you can preview it, and then you can go through and you can customize who you want it to be sent out to, the email subject line, all of that exact same information that we changed earlier. You can now change this for the new bulletin we've just created. The only difference is that we did use that template to go through and have our own custom starting point. To start changing the content for our new bulletin. So now I know we did go a little bit over time. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to end the webinar here. I'm going to pass it over to Omar, who will be going through and taking you through a quick Q&A session, answering any of the really good questions that you guys have been asking throughout the webinar. So with that said, Omar, take it away. Oh, Omar, looks like you are muted.
Thank you. Yeah, I just unmuted. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you, Michael. That was a great webinar. I know we covered a lot of information on creating new active bulletins from one of the system templates, saving a copy after previewing it and sending it over, and then archiving the bulletin for later review. We did receive plenty of great questions, and I did my best to get through them all. I did select a few just to answer live, and you guys should see the Rotary Club of Greentown pulled up on my share screen here. So I've already logged in ahead of time. I'm going to go ahead and click the member area. To begin, I want to answer Rosie's question and one of my example questions I had written down here. How do I create additional bulletin groups to manage the bulletins? So from the club's member area, I believe Michael had shown you how to access the bulletins module through the dashlets here in the communication module and then bulletins page. I'm going to go ahead and use the top blue bar new bulletin beta module, then manage bulletins in the gray bar below. So from this page, if you'd like to create an additional bulletin group which stores and archives bulletins separately from your default group, in the left-hand menu, we're going to click this settings link to open up the bulletin settings. Here are your general bulletin settings. In the top, you can choose the default bulletin group that new bulletins will be created in. If you've created some bulletins or bulletin groups, I should say, they will appear here, and we'll go to create bulletins groups from this link here. But I just want to touch on these settings real quick. Just below that default bulletin group, you have the option to have the bulletin visible on the website. Now, what some would ask, what does this visible on website setting mean? I'm going to go ahead and pull up our club homepage. So if that visible on website setting is set for the default bulletins, your bulletins will appear on the bulletins list page. It is a built-in page part of the system, and it is this. So for your website, whatever the homepage is, say portal.clubrunner.ca/ your account number, you would enter /bulletins. Or if you guys have a custom domain name aliased over, so it's just examplerotary.org, you would add /bulletins. If we click enter, this is where that visible on website setting mainly appears. So those bulletins will be visible from this bulletins list page, and any bulletins that were visible from last year will appear in these year selectors. They will also appear on the home page if you guys have the bulletins list widget added to the home page. Taking a look here, I don't see it's added to this home page. I'm going to quickly use my site administrator profile to add it, to add that bulletins widget to the home page, and we can view that, and then I'll go right back to bulletin groups and creating bulletin groups. So bear with me here. I'm just going to shrink down this preformatted widget group. The bulletin widgets for the live page designer are here in the bulletin NPR group. And if I go ahead and just quickly drag the bulletins widget onto the page, we can see the two bulletins Michael had created are listed. And if I publish this update to the home page, then go back to the home page and refresh the page, we can see those bulletins with that visible on website setting appear here as well. So let's go back into the member area and create a new bulletin group. So I'm back in the member area on that bulletins settings page, quickly talking about that visible on website setting. I'll come back to the settings page. Let's just answer the question here. From the settings option in the bulletin module, I'm going to click this bulletin group link in the left-hand menu. And here is where you can create additional bulletin groups. If I click this orange add group button, we can create up to one more bulletin group. That means there are a total of 5 bulletin groups you can have for your account. You wouldn't be able to create an additional group, but let's go ahead and have this one be private member news. Okay, and in this case, I'm going to set this group to be visible on the website, but require login if the bulletin is opened on the website. So that means that that visible on website setting would continue to appear on that bulletins list widget we added to the home page, as well as that bulletins list built-in page. But if somebody clicks the bulletin from those links, they would have to log in if that bulletin is part of this private member news group. Okay, and part of creating the bulletin group is also entering in an email greeting for that bulletin group. Most accounts leave this email greeting empty. This email greeting will appear at the top of the bulletin before the rest of the bulletin content. So you can enter a custom email greeting and use merge fields to fill in their information, say hello, recipient first name, and then add, and then their last name, for example, and then we're going to add that. Thank you for reading our newsletter. And then you can save that. The next bulletin sent from the private member news group would have this appear at the top, and then the rest of the bulletin content below. So I'm going to save this bulletin group with that orange save button in the bottom right, and there is our private member news group. It is visible on the website, but I set the requires login access level, so visitors must log in if they click one of those bulletins from the private member news group. And again, there is a maximum of 5 bulletin groups. We cannot create any more bulletin groups. Okay, I hope that answers the question about creating them, and then you can set them differently to be visible on the website or not visible on the website, as well as the access level set to public, where if somebody has the link, they can just open it, or requires login, in which case, if they open the bulletin from the website, they would have to log in to view the content. Okay, carrying on, Cynthia asks, can you show a live calendar from the website on the bulletin? Is there a widget for that? So there isn't a similar mini calendar widget for the bulletins, though there is another method to include the club's events. It's the upcoming events widget. So I'm going to go ahead and just open up our active bulletins by going to the manage bulletins page and then clicking view bulletins on the right side here. Here are the club's active bulletins. And I know some people asked when I opened up a new bulletin, I saw different templates. That it may be that your my templates are set as your default template. Sorry, I'm bouncing around here, but let's go ahead and answer this question here. How can we show the events in our bulletin? I'll just open up this bulletin here by hovering over it and clicking the blue open button. And from the Bulletin Live Designer in the Content tab, I'm going to shrink down this Preformatted Widgets group and open this Events widget group. And from here, I can drag on the widget. Looks like we already have it here, but I'm going to remove it and add it again. Oh, I thought I removed it. There we are. And now I can click and drag the upcoming Events widget in any layout section above or below another widget. Let's use this right column. There we are. So now it's showing any upcoming events. If we'd like to set how many events appear in this widget and how far into the future this widget pulls events, we can hover over the widget and in the top right, click this gear icon. And as soon as the properties load, we can scroll past the header properties to the settings. And here we can set how many events is the total this widget can display. It's currently set to 10, and a time threshold, so it can pull up to 10 events up to 2 months in the future. After 2 months, it will not pull additional events. And I do want to mention, when adding this widget to your bulletin, these event titles are linked to the events registration pages. So if somebody clicks the event title from the bulletin, they're immediately brought to the events registration page. I'm not certain if Michael added it to the bulletins we sent earlier, but with this bulletin saved, I'm just going to go ahead and save it. We can view the active bulletin copy, or at least Michael's copy on the website. So I'm going to go to the home page and then pull up /bulletins. And from here, I'm noticing there is some slight formatting issue. I'm not exactly sure what's happened here. It could be that our demonstration account is not quite exactly correct, but your bulletins list page should have the year selectors at the top. If I click a bulletin, let's see. Okay, yep, there we are. We have the upcoming events widget added. And if I hover over those event titles, we can click the event title to open it. And that'll open up, in this case, a calendar item. But I do know that this fish fry and club barbecue is an actual event planner event. And if I click that title, it brings me to the online registration for that event planner event. I also received a question about printing the bulletins. Using your bulletins list built-in page, again, /bulletins at the end of your home page, you can open up the bulletin, and from the browser tab, press Control P, open up your print preview, and then select your printer device. I don't have a printer connected, but if you do, you should find it here, and then you can print the copy. You can also print the copy from the email sent from the system. So you don't have to use this bulletins list page. You can also use the email copy to print and share at the club. Okay, and the last question I received from our Q&A chat is, are the bulletin groups a good way to separate the satellite club bulletins from our regular bulletins? And when we use a group, are the widgets kept separate from the other bulletin groups? I guess it's a multifaceted question. So definitely you can use bulletin groups to organize your satellite clubs bulletins. The widgets from the Live Designer are shared across the bulletin group. So the club information widget would be the same on your satellite bulletin group. What I'd suggest instead is creating a custom widget global for your bulletin module with the satellite clubs information to then use on another bulletin. And I'll go ahead and do that right now. So I'm going to close out these previews and bulletin list pages. Back in the club's member area in the Manage Bulletins page, I'm going to go ahead and open up that same bulletin I added the upcoming events widget to. It was this changeover training bulletin. So looking at this bulletin, we do have the club meeting information widget here. If we were to use this widget on, say, a bulletin in the satellite club bulletin group, it would have the same information. What you can do to work around that is create a custom widget global widget. So I'm going to go ahead and click this group icon. It looks like many widgets have been created here, and I can tell the difference by that magnifying glass icon in the top right. So if a widget has been saved from prior work, it will appear with this magnifying glass where we can click the magnifying glass and see the content added to the widget, in this case, global one. You can create a new widget by dragging the widget with the plus icon in the top left. But I will use one of these existing widgets to start. So I'm going to use this global one widget. I've dragged it onto the page. There we are. I'm going to replace the content and say satellite club meeting information. And then I'm not going to bother entering all that. I'm just going to type in address line 1, postal code or zip code, pardon me, and say meeting times. And if you guys have a meeting link, we can include that by entering in the click here, say click here to join our meeting. And then I can highlight that text in the widget by just highlighting it with my cursor and then using this link editor tool. And say you guys have Zoom or another online meeting service, you can enter the online meeting URL right here in the link type. But do note, if this bulletin is visible on the website and public, people would be able to use that link or at least see the link and access it. So you could put a password on your meeting software or set the bulletin to the requires login access level. I'm not going to enter a link. I'm just going to set this as Google. And I do want to mention you can set that visible on website and access level from the bulletin groups. You can also set that from the bulletins properties while you're working on it using this properties tab in the top right. So if I click properties, we can scroll to the bottom and uncheck visible on website and then check requires login for access level. Even if this bulletin is set to the private member news, the furthest down settings are used for the bulletin. So say if this was in the general group, which is always visible and public, because we've set just this bulletin to not show on the website and require login, even though the general group typically shows on the website and are public, this bulletin will be saved without being visible on the website and require login. So do keep that in mind. You may have your general group that has its general settings, but if you apply settings to the properties tab of the bulletin, those are saved for that bulletin. Okay, so that's how you can set just one bulletin to be private and require login. I still need to reuse this global one custom widget on another bulletin. So I save this as a custom widget global with the title global one. We can change that title by hovering over, clicking this gear icon, and then entering in, say, the title, satellite club meeting information. And then I'm going to save this update. Okay, so that should be our global one satellite club meeting information widget. I'm going to leave this bulletin and open up a brand new bulletin. So From the bulletin main page, I'm going to click this blue Create Bulletin button. I know we're going over. I'm going to wrap up this question, and then I'll show you guys some training resources, our knowledge base, Club Runner community, and then we'll wrap up. Thank you so much for your patience as we did this here. So I'm going to go ahead and select one of my templates. If your club has set from the bulletin settings another templates, those would appear instead. You can just switch between those templates as you're making the bulletin initially. I'm just going to use this bulletin 2 columns and press next. It's going to prepare the bulletin for me. There we are. So I'm on my new bulletin. If I go to the Custom Widgets Global section, I see my satellite club meeting information widget has been saved with its new title. I can scroll to where I want to add the widget and then drag and drop that widget into place. And as soon as I let go, that same information we entered on the other bulletin is now also on this bulletin because we created it as a global custom widget. So you get to use it on other bulletins, and the Live Designer has its own global custom widget. So just keep that in mind. The bulletin global custom widgets and website global custom widgets are separate, but you can just open up the custom widget editor in one of those and then just copy that information from one widget and then make a new global custom widget on the website, or vice versa on your bulletin. And now you have the global widget in both places. Okay, I hope that was helpful. I hope I got through some of your very good questions about making the bulletins visible on the website, or hiding them, or printing them. Let me show you guys some more training and knowledge-based resources. So if you'd like to sign up for the last 2 training sessions, you can go to clubrunner.com/training. I'm just going to type that in again, clubrunner.com/training, and then enter. We have 2 last webinars all the way at the bottom of this page: the website Live Designer for tomorrow, where we're going through making changes to the website and creating custom pages, as well as the advanced website Live Designer on Saturday, which I'll be hosting and showing you guys some tips on embedding videos, linking images to different parts of the system, entering source code if you guys have some custom HTML code to add to the websites. Another resource I'd like to show you guys is the clubrunnersupport.com knowledge base. So I pulled up clubrunnersupport.com in a new browser tab. We are recording these webinars, and we will post these webinar recordings from the 2022 Changeover training to the knowledge base. You'll find those webinars in the videos and webinars section here. I'm just going to go ahead and click. There we are. This Changeover training section in the top left is from 2021. So these are our last year's trainings. After we finish these 2022 trainings, we will also post the recordings here, as well as that clubrunner.com/training page. So I'm going to pull that back up. If you come back to this clubrunner.com/training page, I'd say about 2 weeks after our last session, the register buttons will be replaced with view recording buttons, and then you can view the recordings. Excuse me. The last thing I'd like to share is the clubrunnercommunity.com website. So I pulled that up as well in a new tab. I'm just going to type that in, clubrunnercommunity.com, enter. And on the community, you can log in with your same club or district account credentials. You can just click login and then enter your same Club Runner username and password. It should take you in. If you're having any login issues into the community, definitely reach out to us from the knowledge base in clubrunnersupport.com. You can click this blue Contact Us button if you're having those issues. But back here on the community, you can make any threads you want in the general section or the feedback section. Other customers peruse the forums to post their ideas and questions, and we also monitor the forums for any larger questions or assistance. So if you're looking for somewhere to share your ideas or get more ideas about Club Runner, go to clubrunnercommunity.com. Plenty of our customers post and share their ideas, as well as features that they would like. So join the discussion. Would love to see you guys post. And that's all the resources that I have to share. Definitely check out clubrunnersupport.com and clubrunner.community. I'm just going to pull up a nice slide for all of us here. There we are, and you should see our closing and wrap-up slide. Again, thank you everyone for attending the Bulletin Live Designer webinar. I hope you took away a bunch of information. Again, if you guys have questions, clubrunnersupport.com. You can try searching for your questions, or you can click the blue Contact Us button. If you'd like to directly email us, support@clubrunner.ca. Again, join our online community, clubrunnercommunity.com. And I didn't mention this, but if you go to clubrunner.com/mobile, you can also see our 2 download mobile app links for iPhones and Androids. And finally, definitely check out clubrunner.com/training for our last 2 webinars, as well as a week or so after when we post the recorded webinar sessions. Thank you again for joining us today, and have a great day. Bye-bye for now.